So, good afternoon, everybody, and lovely to be here. As was mentioned, I'm going to talk about how do we try and find focus in an incredibly busy world. As Margot showed earlier, some of the statistics of how many tweets, how many emails, how many YouTube videos are being shared at all times, I'm sure you can feel it in your daily lives. So today I want to talk to you about, ways in which have helped me to find focus. So really, really honored to be here today in an event to promote women in technology and digital. As the ambassador said yesterday, this is such an exciting place to be. You know, this is a real growth industry, and technology and digital is going to touch every single part of our lives. It already is today, but certainly even more so in the future. And for me, I'm really excited to imagine that if we think about that half the people shaping our digital future, shaping technology, if half the people are women doing that, I think that's going to be very, very exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. So today I'm going to talk a bit about my career journey over the last couple of years, and as I said, really as a way to highlight the things that I have found which help me to find focus. I think it's a huge challenge in our society today. How do we focus when, as I said, there's so much to read, there's so much to see, there's so much to share and download? You know, how on earth do we decide where to focus our time and our energy? And the most successful people that I work with have found ways to do that. And so I want to try and share some of those with you today and hope that you find them useful. So a little bit about me. I've been at Nestle for 13 years. I work in the headquarters in Switzerland, and today my role is to lead a global team across 7 different countries to deliver digital and social media services to some of our biggest brands and businesses. One of the countries I also have a team is in Ukraine, so we have some of the guys in the audience today, so hello and welcome to you guys. And basically, we are extremely reliant on technology. Everything in digital and social media is, but we work a lot with our technology partners to make sure that we have and are using the best world-class technology. So I've been working for the last 20 years in digital publishing, all these kind of things. And as was mentioned, these are industries which have completely transformed as I was in them. And I'll give you some examples. You know, from one day to the next, your job sort of changes, and you have to be adaptable in that case. So I'm married to a very, very supportive husband who allows me to do all the things I do, like coming here to this event. I have 1 daughter and 3 stepsons. I also have a dog. And when I have a little bit of time, when I'm not working or doing all the other things, I love to sing. I sing in a choir. I love cooking. Sometimes I sing and cook at the same time at home. So, you know, those are the kind of things I try and do when I'm not working. And a little bit about Nestle as well. Some of you may know some of our brands and some of our businesses. But we are a Swiss company, a Swiss food company that's 150 years old. And where I work in Switzerland is the original town called Vevey, where the company was founded 150 years ago. But we operate across the world. So we operate in 190 countries across the world. We have about 300,000 employees, so we're a really, really a big company. And we have over 2,000 brands. Some of them you might know, like Kit Kat, like Maggi, like Nespresso. I hope you had the opportunity to go up to the 2nd floor and taste some of our Nescafe. I just had one earlier, and it was lovely. And also, we are a company that's really powered by technology. It might not be a natural fit to think that we are, but we have a lot of people within our company who are working in technology for either the factories or for R&D or for digital marketing, which is the area where I work. And I hope you had the time to go and visit. We have a stand here with the team who are answering lots of questions about the company. And actually, I just remembered when I came to this event that I actually arrived at Nestle because I met someone just like this at an event, and we stayed in touch over the years. So, you know, those connections you make in these kind of events can really lead, of course, to bigger things. And of course, this is an event about women, so let me just give you a quick update on what we're doing at Nestle around diversity, inclusion, and gender balance. And Anna, the head of HR here in Poland for us, spoke brilliantly about that yesterday, but we're doing lots and lots of different things to try and create that very inclusive culture. It's really important for us that women are represented at all parts of the organization, and as I said, we're a global organization, so that's all across the world. And we have set kind of goals across the company. And there are lots of different ways we do that, through training on unconscious bias and those types of things, parental leave, flexible working, all those types of things, getting women to senior roles. And as a full-time working mother, that's really benefited my career going forward. So it's been fantastic. And if you want any more information about that, I really encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn or go and find out some more information, because there's lots and lots of stuff online about that. So, as I said, a quick look back at my career and how I sort of ended up where I am today. When I left university, I studied biomedical science. I didn't really have a master plan. I think someone spoke about having a plan yesterday, and maybe I should have had a plan, but I didn't have a plan. But then when I think about it, my job today didn't exist, actually, if I'd tried to define working in digital social media. When I graduated 20 years ago, nobody would have known what that job was. So I think that's always changing. The kinds of jobs that we can apply for are changing all the time. But anyway, I didn't have a plan, but I just took opportunities where I could. I worked really hard, and I tried as much as possible to work in areas that really interested me. I mean, people talk a lot about passion, but when you have a real interest in something, it makes life, of course, a lot easier. So I did that. But I studied biomedical science, as I said, and looking back on it, it must have been much easier to stay focused without the internet. I mean, I don't know how students cope these days. We used to just have books and research journals, and we had nothing distracting us. But for you guys who are studying today, with all of the different things that could attract your attention, my sympathy goes out to you, it really does. So, left university, and then did some crazy things. I worked on a boat for a year, which was a fascinating experience. My parents basically said, why don't you go and do something a little bit different before you get into your career? So I went off and did something, had an adventure, learned lots of things, which I won't go into here because that's another discussion. But then I went back home, stayed at my parents, and I just literally wrote out loads and loads of letters to different companies, saying, this is my profile, I'd love you to give me a job. And I sort of wrote 20 letters, 30 letters, had a couple of interviews, some really bad interviews with some really prestigious companies. And I started thinking, wow, this is terrible. I'm 22 and I've ruined my life already. I haven't got the career I wanted. And I started to kind of add little interesting things into the letters I was writing to people, because I was bored of writing the same letter. So I'd say things like, by the way, I can also make a really good cup of tea. And that one line, apparently, got me the interview at the BBC, where I ended up, I had a job interview, and the lady said during the interview, she goes, I like that comment, the comment about the making tea. She said that was good, it was a bit different. So I ended up working at the BBC, working in the science television area. And as was mentioned earlier, I was a runner, basically, in television, which means you literally run around. You run around, you get coffee. That's why she said the tea comment was useful, probably, because I made a lot of coffee. But I used to pick up physical videotapes, and I would run them across the other side to the editing suites. So I did run around all the time. And then, quite soon into that job, I would say, right, where do you want me to go and get the next videotape? And they'd say, actually, we're doing this new thing. It's like a file transfer. So they're just like emailing it to each other. So you don't have to go and get the videotapes anymore. And I was sort of redundant. I was like, okay. And it suddenly dawned on me, this internet thing is going to be massive. My job's going to change, and the internet's going to transform the way we do things. No more physically running around with tapes, looking at things. And then, after time, I stayed at the BBC for a very short period of time. Another little failure there. I would have loved to have stayed, but I was competing with someone for a job, and I didn't get it. So I had to go and find a new place to work, and I ended up in publishing, actually. Basically publishing yellow pages, and I bet lots of you don't remember telephone directories. I'm not sure. telephone directories used to be big printed copies with lots of telephone numbers in, that if you needed a telephone number, you would pick one up and you'd have a look through. I don't even think they exist anymore today. But again, I worked in telephone directories. And in fact, the last time I was here in Poland was to print an edition of one of these telephone directories. And it was like my very early business trip, so I was pretty excited. They flew me to Poland. I went to the printing press, and I was really excited to see it coming off the press. And when you've worked on a document like that for months and months, you're really just relieved that it's being printed, you're finally there, so you're pretty relaxed. But I was checking out, the final copies coming off the print, and I just sort of turned my head, and I was like, what year is it? And I realized, that's the wrong year on the final copy of the telephone directory that was flying off the press. So a moment of, I had to be very brave, and I had to say, stop the press, everyone stop. These are hundreds of copies coming off at once. Stop the press, wrong date. So they had to go back to the pre-printing press, fix the date, and keep going. But that was a very scary moment. And even when you check things 1,000 times, there are always, possibly things that go wrong. But what I realized in that job was that things are changing very, very much. They're going from print to digital. And I could see that all the consumers that were using our telephone directories were going not to the physical book, but they're going online to try and check and find the numbers. So we as a company had to change very, very quickly, and it felt like it was a matter of months. We said, should we print another version of this thing on paper? And we said no. We put everything online. We try as much as possible to make sure that we have just a digital presence. But that was the first time I really thought about user-centric thinking. And I think we talk about it a lot now, but it's absolutely key. Thinking, who's your consumer, who's your reader, who's your audience, and what exactly is it they need? And I think if you, in all of your jobs or future jobs that you have, if you can be that person sitting in the room, thinking about what the consumer wants, thinking about what the user wants, and really asking the question, like, is this really useful? Is this technology, this use of technology, really going to help our end user? It's quite an empowering way to ask the right questions in the room when you need to really focus on something. So for me, focus on user-centric needs has been very, very key in lots of other different things I've done going forward. Then, as I said, I met someone at an event just like this, and then I ended up working at Nestle, where they were looking for someone for 6 months. So I went and joined the company, and I worked on the website. And I basically did HTML, CSS, working on all those types of things that you need to do on a website. And I stayed there for a long time in the company, in working on Nestle.com, every year making it a little bit better, making it a little bit more useful for the users. And again, user centricity was something that was very, very important when we were looking at the website. And that led me to my second kind of way of finding focus, and that is having a really specific goal, like a really clear, ambitious goal that we had as a team. And what we said is, why don't we try and become, the world's best corporate website? At the time, there was a ranking in the Financial Times, and we were around 13th. Then the year afterwards, we were the 11th. Then we said as a team, why don't we just try and become the first, number one, let's try and be the best corporate website we can. And it really helped the whole team align around one common vision for what we wanted to do. We didn't really believe it at the time. And that's the thing, I think when you look back, you think, wow, we were just imagining. And then finally, after years of slowly making changes, making it better, we ended up being the best corporate website in the world. And so for us, that was a really good way to have one key goal, to visualize what you want, and to really go for it as a team. After that, I moved to the current role I have now, which I mentioned is a global role. And that was a massive change for me. Steep learning curve is an underestimate. It was a huge change. And because I went from a job where I had people all around the world working with me, it's a sort of thing where you go to sleep at night and you wake up in the morning and your inbox is full because the people that you've been working with live on the other side of the world. And I wasn't used to that at all. I was used to really, keeping on top of my emails and keeping on top of everything. So I realized I had to really change my ways of working. Because I couldn't continue in the same way. So I said, yes, I remember I've got to be user-focused. I remember I need to have a goal. So I used those two things that have helped me in the past. But then I needed something else. And I needed a way to try and cope with all these incredible emails, all the journals I should be reading, all the blogs I should be reading. And then I heard about this term on the internet, which is called Fomo. And I don't know if you guys know this one. It's an acronym for fear of missing out. And I thought, wow, FOMO, I think that's what I've got. But really, in the professional sense, fear of missing out on information, fear of missing out on the next big thing in technology. And I just said to myself, right, I need to accept this. I need to say no to FOMO. I need to say I cannot keep up with all the emails, with all the tweets, with all the new blog posts. And when you sort of accept that, I found it's quite calming, and you sort of think, okay. And especially when you tell people too, you sort of say, look, I'm trying my best, but I might not get back to that email that you sent me. So for me, just saying, right, let's accept. It's very difficult for everybody to keep up with everything that we have going on in the world, and accept that you can just read the things you can have time to read, answer the emails you have time to answer, but have an acceptance among each other as well. If someone doesn't get back to you within an hour, maybe it's because they didn't see their email, etc. So for me, that really, really helped to focus, to look for ways in which I could handle all of that volume of information. And I also find that events like this and networking events at work can be very helpful, where you really build real networks and with real people. And when you talk to them and describe to them the kinds of things you're interested in, if something really, really important comes up, you can bet that someone will tell you. So sometimes I hear about maybe something new in automation or artificial intelligence. Maybe someone will bump into the corridor and say, Amy, that's an interesting article I just read. They kind of help you to filter. They help you to add context. And so I hope I'm not missing out on anything major. And it also means that I'm feeling a little bit more relaxed about all of the information that is currently moving around us at great speed. And then the other thing, in order to find focus, came when I had a problem, again, during this same period where I had a new job and everything was a bit overwhelming. I had a problem with my iPhone. None of the apps were working and that kind of thing. So I went down to our wonderful service desk in our office, and I said, I've got a problem with my iPhone. Something's going wrong. And the lady kind of looked at me and she said, when did you last switch off? And I thought she was talking to me. When did I last switch off? And she said, no, the phone. I was like, right. I never switch off my iPhone, ever. Occasionally when you go on an aeroplane, you sort of turn it off. But then she said to me, it's very important to switch your iPhone off, at least once a week, so that it can reset, so that you can get everything back again. But it was an analogy for me, and I was asking myself the question, when was the last time I switched off? When was the last time I just, powered down and really took a moment to reflect on things? And so it was at that period I also started reading about, again, ways in which other people, other professionals find ways to switch off and power down. And of course, there are lots of different ways you can do that, whether it's meditation. It could just be, when you're on the bus, going to work, you take off your earphones and you just look out the window and reflect for just a moment. Because I think the temptation is always there, isn't it? To listen to something, to watch something. Again, going back to that fear of missing out. So this, for me, has become incredibly important. How do you switch off? Even if it's for 5 minutes a day. And that doesn't sound much. But I think this morning, one of the speakers says that she just goes out into her garden and has a cup of coffee in the morning. That's a very deliberate way of just switching off, of just letting the mind take a rest. Our brains are so full of information, and they are our most important asset. So I think, for me, it's been really, really important to find ways to really switch off, power down, just like an iPhone, to really recover. So kind of in summary, the things that I have found useful, that have helped me find focus over the last couple of years, is this user centricity. I can't really tell you how much I think that's really helped me. For every meeting you're sat in, put your mind or yourself in the shoes of those users, those end users or the employees or the consumers, whoever it is you're delivering a service or a product to. And just keep asking those questions. Is this the right thing to do? For me, that drives enormous focus, that user centricity. Having a clear vision, ambitious, but achievable. You need to have something which is, able to be achieved. That also really, really helps. It helps you make the right decisions. Is this going to help us achieve our goal? If not, perhaps I can leave it. Saying no to FOMO, for me, it was kind of a game changer for me. Just to have that acceptance, that forgiveness, that understanding that we can't keep up with everything, and build those really strong networks around you of those people who will be able to help you stay on top of things. And to switch off, to really find time, find a moment in whichever way you can, whether it's sport, or sewing, or singing, or just sitting on a bus, reflecting for just a moment. I think it's essential in our busy, busy lives. So I hope within there you found a few useful tips that'll help you on your career journeys or on your next steps. And I wish you lots of luck with your journey, because we're counting on you. You are the next generation of people who are really going to be shaping and building our future when it comes to technology and digital. So absolutely good luck, and wish you all the best on your journey. Thank you very much.